Hello everybody, this is Mong004 and welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be talking about how I actually went from being a console gamer to more of a PC gamer. This is a little something different than I usually do, so hey, if you do go on to like this video, please hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and hit the bell to be notified the next time I publish a video. At the same time, hit me up in the comment section and let me know what you think. Hey, maybe I can do more videos like this, just commenting and talking about different subjects and so on and so forth. While you're here, check out my other videos. I do make a variety of different gameplay videos and I do play a variety of different games, so go ahead and check that out. And without further ado, let's get into this video where we can talk about some PC related stuff. I was actually a console gamer for quite some time. I mainly had like a PS3 back in the day, and I liked my PS3. I'm not necessarily more of a fanboy or a console fanboy. I just liked kind of the PlayStation brand and a lot of their games and all that type of stuff, and I just left it at that. I wasn't one of those people who walked around with the whole idea of, oh my God, my console's better than yours and all that nonsense. I didn't care about that. I just liked what I liked. Now, during the time that I actually owned a PS3, I also owned an Xbox 360, and I liked it. I liked some of the games that were on it, but I was more into my PS3. Now, I owned my Xbox 360 before I actually owned my PS3. During the time that I owned my Xbox 360, I actually owned several games. I owned the Gears of War games, Gears of War 1 and 2, and I owned Halo. Halo I really liked. I liked Halo 3 because Halo 3 was the first Halo game I ever played, and it wasn't until long in the future that I actually played like Halo 2 and Halo 1 and all that type of stuff. I also went on to play Halo Reach, which is till this day my favorite Halo game, so just want to put that out there. I like the other Halo games, but I thought Halo Reach was the best one. Oh yes, and also Halo ODST. I didn't actually go on to play Halo 4, I'll talk about that in a moment, but Halo ODST was another one that I also played. Almost forgot about that. But there were some games that I actually saw for PlayStation that really intrigued me. I saw the first Uncharted game, and I saw Ratchet and Clank, and I thought that those games were really interesting. And although they're not perfect, I know the first Uncharted is probably one of the clunkiest. I mean, it really is one of the clunkiest of all of them, but it really interested me when I actually saw it. So I said, you know what? I want to get a PS3. So I ended up getting the PS3 and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. And I just left it at that. If I liked things that were on PlayStation, I just liked things that were on PlayStation. It never had to do with being a fanboy. I wasn't out there to go marching for Sony or defending them and all their decisions and worried about how much their sales were. I didn't really care about that type of stuff. I was more of a person who just liked what I liked in terms of what they could offer when it came to games. And that was it. I left it at that. None of the console fanboy stuff. I would eventually move on to purchasing myself a PlayStation 4. And the beginning of the PlayStation 4 was kind of dull. I mean, I know a lot of people really liked the PlayStation 4 generation and, you know, people talked about how great it was. But that generation, as far as I was concerned, didn't really get started until about, I don't know, 2015, because that console actually launched in 2013, and there wasn't a lot of games for it for the first, I don't know, year and a half, 2 years. I know it took a long time for that console to really build up. I mean, the whole term greatness awaits, yeah, you had to wait. Like, really, you had to freaking wait for greatness on that darn console. But I don't think it was a bad generation. I thought it was pretty cool and all that type of stuff. It wasn't bad or anything. Well, it was actually during the time that the PS4 Pro was announced that I started to think about buying a gaming PC. And it was more so when it came to a lot of the people who were like the console fanboys who heard about the PS4 Pro, and a lot of them would have this attitude about how, oh my God, the PS4 Pro is going to be like a super powered gaming PC. Now, even though I might have liked my PlayStation, I knew that the difference between a gaming PC, especially a souped up one, and a console was very different. That type of stuff never escaped me. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew that, come on, a PC, it had these souped up graphics cards and CPUs and the RAM and all this stuff, and not to mention the PCs for more than just simply gaming, so it could do a lot more. So I never fell into that type of mentality. I just knew that the PS4 Pro was going to be more powerful than the standard PS4, and I just left it at that. I might have been a PlayStation fan, but I was never a fan enough to like believe in the craziest, most nonsense regarding a $400 console versus a powered up PC that would probably cost you well over $1,000 to $1,200 to $1,400 to $1,500. Like, come on. I knew that was ridiculous back then. I didn't have to know a lot about PCs and consoles to know that. But because I was hearing all this console fanboy talk about how the PS4 Pro was going to be, like a souped up PC and exactly how childish and stupid all that crap actually sounded, I was like, you know what, maybe I should actually get myself a gaming PC. And that was all back in 2016. So I didn't actually get a gaming PC back then, but I was really interested in it. And I just didn't pull the trigger on just getting it then. Well, time would move forward to the end of the PS4's life cycle, and I would play a lot of games and enjoy myself. And by the way, I never actually ended up getting an Xbox One. I just wasn't interested in that console. I think Microsoft really screwed up on that, but that's a whole nother darn story. I would eventually enjoy myself with the PS4, and as it came close to the end of the PS4's life cycle, and I would hear about the PS5 like everybody did, and I was getting really excited for it, all the extra graphics and features it was going to have. And it looked really neat. I was like, man, I got to get myself a PS5. Well, as everybody would know, the PlayStation 5 was announced, and it took a long time for Sony to finally say, hey, this is when you can pre-order a PS5. Well, on the day that they finally announced when people could start pre-ordering PS5s, obviously, there were sites like Walmart.com that eventually jumped the gun and allowed people to pre-order as soon as possible. And I missed the chance to pre-order myself a PS5. I was actually at work at the time that they actually announced the pre-order details and all that type of stuff. And even when they jumped the gun and allowed people to pre-order ahead of time. So I was just completely screwed out of getting myself a PS5. And I was like, oh my God. And as time went forward, I was like, man, the chances of me getting a PS5 at launch are just getting lower and lower. And I started thinking about the fact that, hey, during the time they were talking about the PS4 Pro, I was actually thinking about getting into gaming PCs. And I've heard all this stuff about gaming PCs and how great they were and all that type of stuff. So I said, you know what, maybe I'll skip on the PS5 at launch. Maybe I'll get it at a later date, which obviously I eventually did get it at a later date. I got it earlier this year in 2022. I actually got it on December 31st of 2021. But I didn't really start playing it until like January 1st of 2022. So again, in 2022 is mainly when I started really messing around with the PS5. So I said, you know what? I'm going to get myself a gaming PC. Heck yeah. So I eventually purchased a gaming PC, and that gaming PC's specs were an RTX 2060, a Ryzen 3700X, and 16 gigs of RAM. So it wasn't anything special, but I didn't really know much about PCs and much about graphics cards and CPUs at the time. I know much more about them now, but back then it was a completely different story. So I didn't know whether it was a low tier PC, a medium, or high. I had no idea. All I know is that it was actually on Walmart.com for about $1,000. And I was like, okay, well, it's a gaming PC and it says that it's a super great PC. I just didn't know much. I just bought into the words of it. So I bought it. Which words of advice for anybody who's thinking about getting into gaming PCs or playing on PC, do some research before you buy. I actually should have done that. So do not do what I did, because had I done some research, I would have probably spent maybe a couple $100 more and would have got a better gaming PC, but I didn't know what I was doing at that time. So again, if you are going to get into gaming on PC for the first time, do some research so you can have a better understanding of what you're buying. Now, to get started with the beginning of my gaming experience on PC, because we all have a beginning, and I did have a beginning. Heck yeah. One of the first 2 games that I actually got on my gaming PC was Destiny 2 and a much older title from the Xbox 360 and PS3 era called Vanquish. I'll talk a little bit more about Vanquish later on, because it's a little bit more about the Vanquish story and me and how I learned some things with Vanquish. But those are the first 2 games that I purchased. And man, I remember playing Destiny 2 on my PS4 Pro, checkerboard 4K at 30 FPS. And again, when you're used to 30 FPS and stuff like that, your brain and your eyes are compensating for that FPS. I mean, they're really compensating, but you don't even notice it. All you think at the time is that, this is good, it's a great looking game and all that type of stuff. Yes, I know there's a lot of people out there that will defend 30 FPS, and they will defend it because they like the cinematic feel of it. That's fine and well. Hey, to each their own. All I know is once I got used to 60 FPS and much higher, going back to 30 FPS was really, really hard. I know some people have gone back to 30 FPS and they've kind of gotten used to it and kind of adjusted their brain to it, but I am not going to try to readjust my brain for 30 FPS. FPS. No, I've gotten much used to frames much higher than 60 FPS. I mean, I've even heard people who said things like, hey, they'd rather have 30 FPS than 120 FPS. Hey, like I said, to each their own. I don't mind a cinematic feel in the game, but give me 30 FPS or 40 FPS when you give me a cutscene. When I get back to gameplay, give me 60 FPS or higher. As a matter of fact, if anything, give me 120 FPS or higher. I'll definitely take the frames over cinematic feel when it comes to gameplay. But I would end up playing Destiny at 1080p and much higher than 30 FPS. Because when I got my gaming PC, I ended up buying a monitor, and it was a 1080p monitor that did 144 hertz. And it was fine. It was actually really good for me. So at that time, with that lower resolution monitor that was much lower res than my 4K Samsung TV, I'm now playing Destiny at a much lower resolution, but a much higher frame rate. And the whole feel, my God, the whole feel of that higher frame rate just, oh my God, it was so smooth. It pretty much made Destiny feel like an entirely different game. Now, I don't want everybody to sit here and think that I'm going crazy here. Yes, that higher refresh rate didn't make up for everything when it came to going from my 4K Samsung TV to that lower resolution display, but it made up enough for me that it just gave me an entirely different experience. I mean, yes, playing it on the PS4, everything's the same as far as the graphics and total and all that. And, looking at the environments and stuff, but getting that higher FPS made seeing the detail in the environments so much better. I mean, you could see the animations and the enemy movements a lot better. Even moving around, you could see the environment and the grass, flowers, and foliage, even water movement, you could see it a lot better. Everything in the environment, everything in your gameplay, even, running and gunning and all that stuff, so much better. Not to mention, there was the FOV slider, which you could actually get a better FOV on PC, but not on console. So that even changed a lot of the feel of it, which I didn't have a PS5 at the time, because yes, on PS5, you can change the FOV, but I'm just mainly talking about my experience going from PS4 Pro to PC. So yes, I do know that on consoles, at least the current gen consoles, you can change the FOV. So that's really good for console gamers. But at least that was a very different experience for me going from console to PC and then having that FPS at the same exact time. And it just felt so much better. Just so much better. It felt like an entirely different game. And that's what really got me into being like, man, I really love playing on PC. And yeah, there were some technical issues I had in playing on PC in the beginning, because again, when you first get a gaming PC, I mean, I knew how to use a PC before then. Like I had laptops and all that type of stuff, but I never owned a desktop. And they weren't like souped up gaming laptops like Alienware or anything like that. They were just pretty much like basic $250 laptops that I mainly used for like emails and searching the web and stuff like that. I didn't really get into the whole PC stuff with them. They were just simply basic use laptops. Nothing real special or anything like that. It's not all that different than using a PC on a regular basis, but when it comes to gaming and the graphics cards and what drivers you have to download, some of that stuff in the beginning is a little bit more cumbersome than what you're used to on consoles. On consoles, it's a lot more simpler, and that's the whole thing about consoles. The benefit, consoles and approaching consoles is a far more simpler process than approaching a gaming PC. It isn't that much more technically involved once you get used to it and you know what you're doing. There is a little bit more to it, and there's so much that I just simply wasn't used to. So I had to get used to it. But knowing that my games could look a lot better and I could have a far better experience in playing them and stuff like that, it just changed the whole world of how I approached games. Not to mention, when I first started gaming on PC, I didn't actually game with a keyboard and mouse. I actually gamed with a controller, and I pretty much hooked up my PS4 controller right up to my gaming PC. So I was pretty much using that PS4 controller to play Destiny and even play Vanquished. But this is where Vanquished really came in, and Vanquished really taught me how to play keyboard and mouse. Not directly. Vanquished was a game that I really liked back in the PS3 days, and I eventually did buy it for the PS4, but I never played it on the PS4. So since I switched to PC and I was really thinking about playing it, I said, okay, I'll download Destiny and Vanquished. Now, Vanquished is a game that I would have to say mechanically, when it comes to the whole gameplay mechanics and just how everything works in that game, I think that game was ahead of its time. Like, I really wish they would remaster that game, because it'd be great. Well, actually, to be honest, they actually did remaster it for the PS4
PS4 and the Xbox One, because it really came from the PS3 and Xbox 360 era. So if anything, maybe I should not say remaster, maybe I should say remake, because I don't know, I just really like that freaking game. Really do.
But I really wanted to play it again, and playing it on PC was enjoyable. But I first started playing it with my gamepad. Now, throughout the time that I'm actually playing Destiny and I'm playing Vanquished, I kept trying to practice using keyboard and mouse. And every time I went back to it, I would just look at the keyboard and say, dude, what the heck am I supposed to do with all these keys? I mean, with a gamepad, you're so used to holding it and the form factor, and because I was so used to holding it and having good hand-eye coordination and motor skills with it, looking at a keyboard, especially going from a gamepad, I mean, that's just a completely different experience. It's a completely different feel. I mean, you have a gamepad with all the few buttons and you have a keyboard with all of these keys, and I just looked down at it and I'm like, what do all of these keys have to do with playing a game? Like, and I would just think to myself, like, what does this have to do with running, jumping, shooting, or all the things that have to do with it? Like, what does this have to do with a darn video game at all? And I remember looking at all these videos with people talking about playing with keyboard and mouse, and I would just look down at the keyboard and say, how did they get used to all of these darn keys? It's so different than a gamepad. You get so many keys next to so few buttons on a gamepad. How did they get used to it? And it almost seemed intimidating and overwhelming. Like, what in the world do you do with all this stuff? You know? And that's just what I thought about that stuff when I first got into the idea of using a keyboard and mouse. And I just wondered, how did all the other people get used to all of this? And I would hear all these people talk about how great it is to play on keyboard and mouse, how it's better than using a gamepad. And I'm like, well, I want to get to this greatness, because with how complicated this looks, I just don't see the greatness yet. On top of that, I'm also not a typist. I wasn't a typist then, and I'm not a typist now. So again, I had to get used to a lot of things on the keyboard. That's the first thing you think when you first get into PC gaming, but it ends up becoming a great big advantage. At first, it seems like a crutch, but it's actually a great big advantage, especially how you can customize key bindings and all that type of stuff.
I mean, in a lot of games, you can actually customize your buttons on a gamepad, but that's far fewer buttons. But when it comes to what you can change in key bindings and on your mouse buttons and everything, you end up realizing all those keys that at first seem intimidating are actually pretty much a lot more options than what you get on a gamepad. So again, a big advantage.
With playing Vanquished on a gamepad, there are some advantages with playing it on there, and it feels good, it feels nice.
Like, one of the advantages of using a thumbstick is that you get more nuanced movements when it comes to running around, because you have all these different directions that you can go, whereas using the WASD keys and only going in 4 directions is a little bit more rigid movement, but you do eventually get used to that. However, when it comes to Vanquished, one of the things when playing the game is using the suit's thrust boosters.
In that game, you know, where you can actually speed ahead and slide on the ground, and you can slow down time and all that stuff. Doing it on the gamepad, it feels fine, feels kind of natural, but it was a little harder for me to do that stuff on gamepad because you had to use L1 to use kind of those boosters, while at the same time aiming, while at the same time trying to aim down the sights. Whereas doing it on keyboard, it was much easier, especially with using the mouse.
I guess using a Pro controller could probably alleviate some of those problems, because you could probably allocate the boosters to some of the back paddles on the back of the gamepad and stuff like that. I didn't have a Pro controller at that time. I actually use Pro controllers now when I do play with them sometimes, but because I didn't have a Pro controller back then, I just found it more innovative to use keyboard and mouse.
Now, using keyboard and mouse, the mouse is very natural to get to. You know, just point, click, point, click. And heck, the first time I used a mouse, I mean, I got it immediately. You know, just move the mouse around and that's no problem. Not to mention, you know, I already knew, okay, right click is how you aim down the sight and left click is how you shoot. That was just really easy. But it's the keyboard that took me getting used to.
If there's any area in using keyboard and mouse that there's the biggest learning curve, it's the keyboard. The mouse always comes off as natural. The keyboard, on the other hand, is much more of a challenge.
And because I realized after playing around with the keyboard and kind of practicing with it in Destiny and kind of fumbling with it at first, I'm playing Vanquished. And the first thing I did is I said, okay, you know what?
I got this keyboard sitting here and I keep on being intimidated by using it, plus fumbling all the time. I really need to take the time to learn how to freaking use this thing. So I was determined and I said, you know what? Let me learn how to use this darn keyboard.
Let me get used to WASD. So I just used WASD, ran around in a circle, right? And eventually, after running around in a circle and just doing some basic movements, it got me into realizing, okay, well, no, I can do this. I can do this. Because I fumbled with it at first, and it was really hard for me to really get into using a keyboard and mouse. It was such a pain in the freaking butt. But man, once I got used to using it at Vanquish, and once I got used to the keys and changing the key bindings to what could at least fit for my very new hands at a keyboard, I started realizing this was a game that was much better played on keyboard and mouse.
Well, maybe I shouldn't say best played on keyboard and mouse, but at least for me, I felt it was better to play on keyboard and mouse.
And that's what I would suggest to anybody switching from gamepad to keyboard and mouse. Get a game that you really like, a game you know the ins and outs of, and do that on keyboard and mouse, because that will encourage you to learn the keyboard and mouse better, especially the keyboard. So definitely do that. That would be a lot better. Yeah, that's what really taught me how to play keyboard and mouse on PC.
Now, most of the time when I'm actually playing my games, yes, I usually use keyboard and mouse. However, there are some rare times that I actually use a gamepad. Now, on console, I mainly use a gamepad, and there are some games like Warframe and Call of Duty that actually have options for keyboard and mouse controls. And I really wish that if game developers, while they were creating their games, would actually create games with more keyboard and mouse controls for consoles. I think that would actually be pretty good for a lot of console gamers and stuff like that. More options is always better, especially more peripheral options. Helps you to learn a little bit better. This way, when you switch to PC, hey, you already learn how to use keyboard and mouse if you ever tried it on console. However, when I do actually have to use gamepad, I have an Xbox Power A controller. Actually, to be exact, I have an Power A Xbox Fusion Pro controller. I actually really like this controller that I actually bought, I would have to say earlier this year, because for the longest time I was actually using my PS4 controller anytime I actually wanted to play a game using gamepad on PC. But with my Power A controller, I like it, and I actually got used to using a Pro controller because, I don't know, Pro controllers, I just think they're a lot better than the normal average standard controller. As a matter of fact, I'm more one of those people who actually think maybe they need to stop shipping these regular standard controller. Even PlayStation now has a new Pro controller, and I particularly think that Pro controllers should technically be the standard. Now, yes, Pro controllers usually cost more. Sometimes they can cost maybe 20, 40 bucks more, but now they're up there at hundreds of dollars more. And with the prices of these new consoles and stuff like that, especially with the PlayStation, going up 50 bucks in other nations, I highly doubt people will want to see another $200, $250 added to their console cost just because of the price of the controller. But if there was a way that they could make controllers that were less expensive to build, it'd be great for those Pro controllers to actually be the standardized controller that came in the box. Even if it meant that it wasn't customizable, at least have a couple back buttons and use something like that. I actually got my Power A controller for only about $89, so that was actually pretty good. I actually like my Power A controller. It's actually the Pro controller I like the best because I also have another Pro controller. It is a color customized Scuff Reflex Pro controller. I actually customized it orange, gray, and white. I know it's kind of weird colors and all that type of stuff, but I do like it. But it's pretty much like the PS5 controller, except with the back paddles and stuff like that. And the whole thing about Pro controllers is that they just add that whole option of not having to press the face buttons. You can just simply use the back buttons. And that helps to keep your hand like on the right thumbstick. So if you're playing like a first-person shooter or something like that, you can just keep your hand on that right thumbstick so you can press the jump button and use the back paddles to press the jump button without actually having to take your hands off that right thumbstick. I think it's really, really neat to have that kind of setup. There are a few games on PC that I actually use my Pro controller to actually play, and I would have to say Nier Automata and Nier Replicant are the main games that I mainly use a gamepad for. Yeah, you could probably use keyboard and mouse with it and stuff like that, but I don't know. I've tried using a keyboard and mouse on that. I don't know. It's just kind of funny. Maybe I could play it and get used to it with keyboard and mouse, but I don't know. It feels a lot better to use a gamepad and play in those two games. So those are the few games that I actually use gamepad on. And sometimes while playing Destiny or sometimes while playing Call of Duty, I will sometimes just use a gamepad here and there to try to get used to it. But because I actually haven't used a gamepad for a while, it does take me a little longer to get used to it again, and I'm not as good with a gamepad as I used to be. I used to be much better with a gamepad. Now I kind of suck. I kind of suck with a gamepad, but that's what happens when you get used to something else. Your memory and your muscle memory for the old thing just goes away, and it just takes a little while for you to get used to that old thing after getting so used to the new thing. So that's really what it is. Now, before purchasing my first gaming PC, I didn't have the intention of just being casual about getting into gaming PCs. Of course, the first one I got was a pre-built one, and unfortunately, the second one I got was a pre-built one, but I'll explain a little bit more about that later on. But I bought that pre-built one, and I kind of tinkered with it a bit because I really wanted to learn the ins and outs of the gaming PC and all that type of stuff. My intention was to actually learn how to build my own gaming PC from the ground up. That's motherboard, graphics card, CPU, GPU. Well, GPU is the graphics card, but you know what the heck I mean. RAM, and even building it inside of my own new case and everything. This way, just in case something happens to it, like a part breaks or whatever, I could find out what it is and just replace that part. And ultimately, this would help me to learn how to replace that part. And yes, I actually did a lot of tinkering with my gaming PC when I first got it, really learning those things. I don't tinker with it a lot, at least not anymore, because I learned a lot about that type of stuff back then. But when I first got my gaming PC, I did a lot of tinkering. And this really taught me a lot because in the future, I actually ended up having a problem, and learning this really taught me some things in how to actually service my own PC. Now, I'm not one of those people who have this mentality like, hey, if you don't build your own gaming PC, you're not a real PC gamer. It's nothing like that. Hey, if you're more comfortable just getting that thing pre-built, absolutely fine. I just think that building your own PC can really prepare you to probably service your own PC if something goes wrong. Because imagine you could end up spending hundreds of dollars sending it back to the manufacturer for them to fix something that might be easy to fix yourself. It depends on what it is and how much you know about different PC parts and something like that. So learning how to build your own PC could pretty much help you to troubleshoot what the problem is. And maybe you can just fix it and not have to replace the part at all. Or maybe just one part needs to be replaced and that's about it. And thus you just pay for that one part and not have to pay for that one part. And at the same time, pay the service fee for people to fix it. So it really does help to kind of learn to build your own gaming PC. But I'm not a stickler about definitely having to build your own gaming PC to be a real PC gamer. I'm not that type of PC elitist, PC master race type person. Now, like I said earlier, when I bought that second pre-built gaming PC, it wasn't because I really wanted a second pre-built gaming PC. Again, I wanted to build my own gaming PC. And I kind of did build a whole new PC out of my original PC. First, I rebuilt it with a brand new motherboard, brand new RAM, brand new CPU, and brand new case. So I ended up upgrading the motherboard that I had out of the original pre-built PC that I had because it was kind of a really cheap one. The original motherboard it came with was a Gigabyte B450M, and I actually upgraded it to a Asus B550E gaming motherboard. So it was a big upgrade from that original one. Then I ended up going from 16 gigs of RAM to 32 gigs of RAM. I'm not sure what the original 2 sticks of RAM were, but I actually upgraded to the G-Skills Ripjaw V-Series 32 gigabytes, which was 2 more sticks. And again, this would give me more memory and better system response. Then I moved up from that 3700X to a 3900X Ryzen CPU. And the picture of that case that I showed you guys on that Newegg site, that's actually the case that I bought. This way I could have a bigger system and have better airflow and more space just in case I got a bigger graphics card, because an RTX 2060 is not all that big, but the 30 series cards were actually pretty big. So this way I could have plenty of space to upgrade to a much bigger card. And last and definitely not least, I also wanted to buy myself a brand new GPU. Problem is I couldn't buy a new GPU because I really wanted a 30 series GPU. And again, this was all near the end of 2020 because that was when I first bought my first pre-built PC, which this happened in the middle of November of that year. And this was in the middle of the pandemic, plus the whole crypto boom, and the prices were sky high. They were scalping the crap out of these graphics cards. So affordability and availability of a standalone 30 series GPU was almost impossible for me to find. So I was pretty much forced to buy myself a pre-built gaming PC. And what I did was I went to Newegg. This is one of the reasons why I was kind of showing Newegg earlier, and bought myself an ABS Gladiator gaming PC, which had an RTX 3070, an Intel CPU. I forget which one it was. I think it was a 400F one. I'm not too sure. 16 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte M.2 NVMe drive. But I mainly only bought it for the GPU. And this GPU pretty much cost me $1,700 because it had to come with the whole PC. So I couldn't just buy that standalone GPU. I had to buy the whole PC, and it was $1,700. I think a PC right now with all those specs would probably cost much less. But yup, that's how much I had to spend just to get a 30 series GPU. I know it's stupid. That's a whole lot just to get one GPU, but there were so many people doing that back then that in order to get a 30 series GPU, you had to buy a pre-built and then you just take the GPU out, which is exactly what I did. I took the GPU out of that PC. I put it into the PC that I built that had my RTX 2060 in it. Then I bought a whole bunch of new parts for that new pre-built, which ultimately I kept the case. I got rid of the motherboard because the motherboard was crap, just like the first pre-built PC that I had. And I bought a brand new Asus B550F gaming motherboard. I bought 2 more sticks of RAM, 32 gigabytes, G-Skills, Trident. I also kept the original M.2 NVMe SSD that actually came with the system and expanded on the memory with another 1 terabyte M.2 NVMe SSD. I forget which one it was. And I bought a Ryzen 3900X processor, which ultimately made that PC great, at least for what it was and what I was going to use it for. But it only had a RTX 2060 in it, so it wasn't going to be all that great. But that would eventually become my streaming PC or my content creation PC, while the PC I already built with the new case and the better RAM and all that type of stuff would have the RTX 3070 in it. So before I end this video, let me just let you guys have a little update in what my PC setup is now. I actually work on a dual PC setup, so one PC is my stream or content creation PC. I don't actually stream or anything. I hope to maybe stream at some point in the future, but right now I just actually create content like YouTube videos and all that type of stuff. And the other PC is primarily my gaming PC. My content creation PC pretty much runs an RTX 3070 with 32 gigabytes of RAM at 3600 megahertz, a Ryzen 3900X, and it's a pretty decent PC. It's actually the smallest PC because it doesn't get too hot and the airflow is good enough inside of that thing. The other PC is running an RTX 3080, which is what I wanted in the beginning when I tried to get a 30 series graphics card the first time. But as I said before, it was really hard to get. On top of that, it was hard to actually get for a reasonable price because of all the scalping and everything else. So there's all that too. Anyway, it also has a Ryzen 5900X, 32 gigabytes of 3600 megahertz RAM, and it actually uses an AIO cooler because, 5900X can get pretty hot, especially if you overclock it a little bit. I actually overclock mine a little bit through the TPU system. So I do overclock mine a little bit, so that AIO cooler does help to keep it cool, and it actually runs it pretty nice. And it's inside of that big case that I talked about and showed you guys earlier, stuff like that. Love my PCs, absolutely love where I am with them, and I hope to do some other stuff with videos like this because I really like this. But thank you guys for watching this video. This actually took a while to make, it longer than I thought it was going to take to make. But this is my discussion video talking about how I became a PC gamer. Again, I'm not against consoles or anything like that. I actually have a PS5 and I have actually a Nintendo Switch, which I mainly use like a console. I don't use it as a mobile device. I don't know. I just don't care to take any mobile thing with me except my phone. But I do play on my cell phone. I play actually some COD Mobile. I just started playing some COD Mobile, and man, that game is addicting. I actually played on my cell phone and on my PC, so it's actually a really, really neat game. So maybe I'll make a video talking about that or put out some of my videos playing the game. We'll see. But as I was saying, as far as me being a PC gamer, it's just simply now that I prefer playing on PC, and that's why I wanted to make this video. Again, I have nothing against other platforms. I really wish there was no such thing as exclusivity. I wish every game could come to any platform, so long as that platform could play that game, then you should be able to play it. Like, I'm that kind of person, And I was always like that even when I was a PlayStation fan. Even though PlayStation had its exclusives and Xbox had its exclusives and Nintendo had its exclusives, it wouldn't have mattered to me if a PlayStation exclusive ended up on Xbox. Why? Why would I care? If more people get to play that game, that's a good thing. You get more of a fan base, more people to talk to about some of your favorite games. But some people act like it has some real bearing on their ability to enjoy a game. I never have, so I never got that. But hey, that's the way some people are. You can't fix everybody. You can only ever be yourself and let people be them. That's really all I'm going to talk about here today. But if you guys did like this video, remember, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Hit the bell to be notified the next time I publish a video, and hit me up in the comment section and let me know what you think. It's great to get your feedback on videos like this and even on my other gameplay videos that I normally make. And I do make a variety of different gameplay videos, so check out my videos. You might like them. At the same time, hey, if you can share this video, share it on your socials. But thank you very much for watching this video, and as always, until next time, this is Mong004, and I am out. Take care.